911 operators, what's the funniest thing you had a kid call in? I had a kid ask me if my refrigerator was working. I replied with, "Do you mean is it running?" He cussed at me and then hung up. Duck you clink. I had a little boy Calninwananito tell me he was hungry and needed breakfast. I asked him if he was alone, and he said no, his sister was watching him, but she was sleeping. I told him he should go wake his sister to have her make him breakfast. He said she is real mean and she won't be nice to me. I said okay, you stay in the house and I will take care of this. His mom was an EMT, so I knew his family. I called his grandma and had her go take care of the breakfast crisis, and his sister had no idea. His mom later called to apologize, and I just asked her to explain the general rules of 911. Edit. It should be noted the unfortunate turn of events mentioned in the comments happened years after he called. At the time of the call they were just a normal sibling pair, one who possibly wouldn't make breakfast for another, and got the cops called on them. Young Kyle DS Taraves TOD at HFITA BGGINGFORFOD. My uncle is a dispatcher in my hometown. He always tells me the story of this 4-year-old who Kaladnin won an EBA course his older brother farted on him. Edit. Since this blew up I'll add a little more to the story. The kid hung up the phone a short time after he explained what happened. My uncle said he was laughing too hard and had to wait a couple extra seconds before calling the number back. The mother answered the phone and he had to explain what happened to her and to make sure everything was alright. The mother was mortified and apologized over and over. My uncle said it was a welcome moment of levity during a stressful holiday work week. How many squad cars did you send? 2, but they arrested the kid who called, based on the legal principle of whoever smelt it dealt it. Worsened vocab. But in court he referenced the legal principle, he who denied it, supplied it. I had a 6-year-old girl accidentally calling one on a saying that her mommy and daddy were making hoopy. I had flashbacks of Family Feud and laughed so hard. I waited a few minutes and called back, and her mom tried to play it off saying they were wrapping Christmas presents. Yeah, sure lady. If your present is a new little brother or sister, wrap it before you tap it. Lick it before you stick it. I had a little one call into our center about 10 times, just so she could tell us that she loved us and appreciated us, and we are doing such a great job. Our center is pretty big, so she would get a different person almost every time. However, if she got you more than once, she would say something like, no, I already told you. I need to tell someone else. You're great, but they need to know they're great too. Okay, I love you, bye. It was all from a disconnected cell, and we weren't really getting a great phase on her location, but she stopped after about an hour, so it wasn't super concerning. Made my day. I hope she grows up and keeps that big heart of hers. We need more people like her in the world. They don't necessarily need to call 911, but the point still stands lol.
N.
That sounds like a very huggable person. When I was 4 years old I was watching a fire safety video. They told me to call 911, so I did. I mean for a 4-year-old, that is pretty sound logic. Me, 911 where is the emergency? Little Mexican kid. Yeah. We need a vegetarian. Me, long pause a what? Kid, a vegetarian. Me, silence as I'm processing this kid. For my dog he's sick. Me, okay you need a veterinarian. Sorry buddy but need one niece for human emergencies. Kid, oh, okay bye. Kid had to have been like 10 to 12 years old. Not a dispatcher, but I did once have a child tell me that some people do not eat meat because they are virgins. My dad was the chief of police when I was growing up, and I spent a lot of time at the station. When I was 4 or 5, my mom wouldn't let me do something, so I called the emergency line pre-911 days, and after the 30th police, "What is your emergency greeting?" I very sternly requested that they arrest my mother. The dispatcher recognized the address I was calling from, and called my dad to tell him that I was on the emergency line and what I wanted. I got a lecture that night, but from what my dad says, they had a good laugh about it at the station. Oh hell yeah, 30 police. My cousin called because she was giving her lizard a bath and it went down the drain. It was like a tiny house gecko named Steve. She called 911 agreeing that Steve was drowning and had gone down the drain. By the time the dispatcher figured out Steve was a gecko, the police and fire dep were already pulling in. She was like 6 or so, and I still tease her about it. I do feel bad for Steve though. I'm laughing really hard, but part of me wants to cry also cause Steve must have been so confused. Poor soul. A 4-year-old called in to say that his dad took his trick-or-treat candy. Yeah, he took it, so the kid wouldn't fill his face in a single night. The dad was planning to ration it out. My kid asked a cop at a festival to arrest me for not letting him have the entire funnel cake. Also for, it's a fun year. I think I was 4 when I called 911 wanting to talk to my dad because that was the only number one knew. I hid in a hamper when the police came to the door routine because I hung up. We had military police come to the house before because I called 911 when we lived on base asking to talk to my dad who was currently deployed. They knew who I was immediately and told my mom to not let me call people. I went on a bike ride later that day, thought it would be a good idea to put my foot in the front wheel and the same people took me home. I didn't realize it was the same people until my dad's retirement and that story was told. My older brother said he called the cops on me for something, so I called them back to say nothing was wrong and that he was lying because I was scared. My dad was pissed. I genuinely hope your dad was pissed at your older brother and not you. It's been 1 hour. Op is confirmed dead. Let's call 911. Nothing's wrong and he's lying. On a Saturday morning about 7 AM I was sleeping in, and my 2-year-old called 911 cause he wanted breakfast. I didn't know till a sheriff was knocking on the front door doing a welfare check. I would love to have heard that conversation. When we were younger and home alone, my sister called the police on my brother because they both wanted the same In-N-Out burger. We had 4 identical burgers, but they wanted the same one. The police came to our house and explained to us why we shouldn't call the police for no reason. Our mom came home in the middle of their lecture. She was not happy. So who got the good burger? Young teen just had her first menstrual cycle. First I thought AWW sweet, but then that's some poor kid who'd never been told what to expect and panicked. Sad. When I was a young kid, I was never told that teeth fall out. So, when I lost my first tooth, I reacted about the same way you might if your finger just kind of fell off with a little bit of blood coming from the stump. My favorite call recently was from an 11-year-old kid who was walking home from school and got lost. He called 911 in a panic, so I told him to stay where he was until officers arrived. We didn't have officers available for about 30 minutes, so we just spent half an hour chatting about Fortnite. I guess not exactly a funny call, but it was enjoyable. I was on the job when 911 first was implemented in my county on the late 1980s. When I answered 911, "What is your emergency?" kid said, "My deck is too short," and, of course, he hung up laughing, not realizing that with 911 knew where he was. 30 minutes later the sergeant had him at the station explaining to me why he used such bad language back quote to such a nice lady. I just retired last year after 30 years in the comm center. Send a unit out and then blast over the megaphone, "Hey, we heard your deck is too short." My kid was 17 months old and impossible to tie down. While I was cooking dinner he went into the study and somehow dialed 000 emergency line in Australia. I think he was trying to talk to his nana, but panicked when a stranger's voice came down the line instead. I caught him and hung up the phone, not knowing he'd actually dialed anyone. Then I went back to cooking butter chicken for dinner. 14 minutes later the police are on my doorstep. They came in urgently, looking for an old man who might have fallen down. The emergency line operator had asked several questions, but the only response she had gotten was labored, heavy breathing that she thought was an old man too injured to speak. Luckily for us, it was just sneaky and confused toddler wheezing. We figured it out, and I brought my kid out to meet the police and one of them said, "Yeah, that'd be the perp. Look at the guilty look on his face." Funnily enough, my kid did have an expression of extreme chagrin. Possibly the first and last time he ever felt guilty for anything.